Hey, this is Kyle Carver from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Crimer Beer House for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. The beer house was started in 1982 by the Crimer family. Since that time, they have become a Cincinnati favorite. If you're looking for an incredible meal and an incredible setting, you have to try Crimer's Beer House down on Route 128 in Cleves, Ohio. All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Strong Dads here with the broken, but he's here. He's present. Merle, what's going on today?
Oh, man, I'm all right. I'm hanging in there.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, just recovered off of a knee surgery, a knee replacement. So I feel like I've been the brunt of a lot of jokes here.
Yeah,
lately.
I bet you have.
Yeah.
Has Linda poked fun at you a little bit?
Once she knew that I wasn't going to die, she started poking fun at me. Yeah, and once she
Came out of surgery and you're alive. Yeah.
I think she checked the insurance policy. As long as that was good, then she started poking fun at me.
Well, yeah. So you just got some pretty significant knee surgery, right? You just got the whole thing replaced.
Yeah. Well, it kind of stinks. I have osteoarthritis, and just I don't do a very good job of calming down and not doing exercise and motion. I continue to push it, and so then the knees.
Are you built cheap?
What's that?
Are you built cheap?
I'm built strong, right?
Because I'm built cheap, but
You're built cheap.
I've had 2 hernia surgeries. It's,
Then I guess I would say I'm built cheap.
Right.
Yeah, they had really poor raw materials to build me with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We should do a show on that. God building us with cheap parts.
Yeah. And he said he didn't make junk. What's that about?
Well, yeah. So, anyways, after we get to poke fun at you, Merle, here doing another episode with you guys. We're really excited to be back. We're going to be doing a show, hopefully have a little bit of fun, but hopefully be able to turn around and realize our flaws are funny at times, but also it should be a learning curve for us. We should definitely learn from it. But today we're going to talk about being slow to anger and how difficult that can be sometimes, especially for all you dads out there. It's you should be able to attest that sometimes being a dad is very easy to be quick to anger.
Yes. And we're gonna have some fun with just sharing some of our own personal stories on when maybe anger got the best of us, and we share those stories to have some fun, but to also speak to, 1, our humanness, and 2, what do we need to learn from that, as you spoke about earlier. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with that, but before we go on any further, we probably better thank our sponsors.
For sure, yeah. We don't want them to get angry at us.
No.
Anyways, Strong Dad wants to thank Crimer's Beer House down on Route 128 for coming alongside of Strong Dads and believing in what we believe in. The beer house was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they're definitely a West Side Cincinnati favorite. So go down there and check them out down there on Route 128 in Cleves, Ohio. All
right, very good. So we want to thank also Mansfield Insurance Agency in Bright, Indiana, for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. They were established in 1981. The Mansfield Insurance Agency has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Bright, Indiana, serving clients in Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So for all your insurance needs, contact Mansfield Insurance. All right. So why this topic, right? Why this topic?
This topic is again for you, Dad. I think we can all plain and simply say that sometimes our kids just piss us off.
They do, and I mean, I like to say. So I've got kids in all different ranges.
Yes, you do.
My oldest one is getting ready to turn 29, and my youngest just turned 12. And so, again, I would say my oldest ones now they don't really get under my skin.
But now they piss you off, you can go.
Now I probably piss them off more than anything. But no matter the stage that they're in, there's things, behaviors, and stuff that happen that can really kind of get you twisted up.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to share some stories with this because some of these are funny. But this is one that involves my son, Zach. And so Zach was always kind of my quiet little prankster, okay? Yeah. And one day I heard him and his buddies down in our basement, and they were all playing this game. And they were all laughing and thinking it was funny, and I'm just upstairs doing something, working or whatever. And so they all come upstairs, and they're like, Dad, you got to do this. You got to do this. And I heard him laughing downstairs. I was like, oh, whatever. So my son Zach comes right up to me and he goes, okay, I need you to close your eyes. All right. So I close
First
my eyes.
mistake.
Yeah. And he goes, so you're walking through a forest and it's dark and there's tree branches everywhere. And all of a sudden you start to run. And as you run, boom! And he punches me right in the face. And he says, you hit a tree branch. And I'm telling you, he did not just sort of tap me in the forehead.
And how old was he at this time?
He was about probably 10, something like that.
Just, so he had a little bit of weight behind him.
All of his buddies, they're laughing. And when they saw the expression on my face, how he shocked me and hurt me, I was so ticked off.
Oh, I bet.
They're laughing. And when they see my facial expression, they flee. I mean, and I grabbed hold of Zach and I said, son, don't you ever do that again. Oh, I was so ticked off at that kid. I was ready to kill him.
Man.
Yeah. So now we laugh about that. Zach still brings it up. How, hey, Dad, you want to go walking through the woods? Not with you, Zach.
Well, now he's in the military. Now his punches might hurt a little bit more.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't mess with him now. But
man, that's funny.
Yeah. How about you? You got any stories?
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, I guess. So a while ago, my oldest is 6, my youngest is 4. So when my 4-year-old was actually quite a bit younger, she was probably still a baby. Ava, my oldest, was in our living room, and we have a real nice fireplace in our living room. And so Ava is kind of playing with Mia, and they're going back and forth. Well, Ava at this time is 2, 2.5, whatever, 3. And so she's playing a little bit more rough than what a baby can really handle. And so they're going back and forth. Well, the one time Ava decides to push Mia, and she kind of pushed/hit her a little bit and got real close to that fireplace. And I jumped up off that couch. Man, I grabbed her. And I went right from like 0 to 100, right? And I went and I'm not big on spanking my girls unless I let them know why I'm going to spank them, like you're getting spanked. So that I didn't get a chance to explain.
You didn't give a fair warning.
So I went to go spank her. Well, as I did, Ava moved forward and I smacked the back of her leg.
Oh.
Yeah, and then at that point, I'm like, I go from being really angry to like, oh, geez, I'm a terrible dad. I just hit my kid. So now she's got this welt on the back of her leg. I'm like, all right, we're staying inside all day. You can't go outside.
Yeah.
Can't let anybody else see you. But I felt terrible. But it was just that, like I said, I went from 0 to 100 like right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not my finest moment as a dad. But besides that, man, every third day I get off work, fast forward to now with my job, I get off work and I don't know about you guys out there, but when you're tired and hungry and you haven't slept and you're grumpy, man, my girls say like that nothing significant, and it just sets me off. It just gets to that where I'm just like, I snap at them real fast. So unfortunately, every third day I have a tendency to This
sounds like some kind of menstrual cycle or something that you're dealing with. Are you all right?
Well, my menstrual cycle happens because now, as we're recording, I'm on my EDO week, my week where I get 5 days off in a row.
Oh, you seem to always be on that.
So
week.
I get to reset, and it's really good for me as a dad because I get 5 days to reset and not be so quick to anger with my kids. But
that's good for them too.
That's very good for them. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I have a story. Part of this is kind of representing how we're not always the best dads in the world.
Absolutely.
Right? And so my boys, the older boys, were, Dad, we want a tree house. We want a tree house. So we own some woods, a little bit of forest there, and I'm like, yeah, we'll build a tree house. We'll build a tree house. And again, I was all talk, and finally. I had a big house renovation going on. Okay. I mean, and I had the summer off as a teacher.
Sure.
And it was an $80,000 renovation.
Wow.
And I was the one doing it kind of by myself. And so I'm in the middle of this house renovation, working by myself. And they keep, Dad, what about our tree house? Dad, what about our tree house? And I'm like, just feeling guilty, and I'm like,
right.
Don't you guys see? Like, I got this huge project that I have to do, And so finally, I'm feeling guilty one day, and we get up, and I said, okay, guys, here's the deal. we're going to build a tree house today. All right. And so we get up, and it's a hot summer day.
Yeah.
I bring some of my scrap lumber and stuff down into the woods, okay? And then we start working. Well, it's hot. After about a half hour, 45 minutes, I'm losing their attention. They're no longer, picking up wood or helping me do anything. And I'm starting to smoke. Yeah. I am like,
you guys wanted this, and now
freaking kidding me. And so within about an hour and 15 minutes or so of this project not going well, I start chucking lumber down deep, and I'm like, you know what? And I am acting like a 3-year-old, throwing the lumber. We're not going to have a tree house, okay?
Right.
This is the way it's going to be. And at that point, they're like thinking I've lost my mind, and I leave and I go back up to the house. I will tell you, to this day, they don't have a tree house. Okay,
they come over my house.
I know. That's why I tease you when you were building your tree house. It just brings back that memory to me that why my boys, because I'm an idiot, that my boys don't have a tree house.
Do they remind you of that still today?
Once in a while, we never did have a tree house, Dad. And I say,
throwing lumber at them. You're mean.
Yeah, I didn't throw lumber at them.
You didn't throw it at them.
No, I threw it in the woods.
I'm going to spread the rumor that you threw it at them. I'm going to perpetuate it a little bit.
So, yeah. Well, here's the deal. Anger can get the best of us.
Yeah.
And when we have anger, we also have an opportunity to hurt people.
Yeah.
And to
say those things.
Say things. And we're trying to be real with you in the sense that, no one here is perfect.
Right.
And whether it be some of the stories that we shared today or whether it be something that you have in your house, we really want to talk about, okay, so what do we do with this anger?
Right.
And we also want to talk about how do we avoid getting put into a situation where we know that it could be a trigger for us. We know that we could get angry from that. So, so we really want to let's walk through a little bit of advice on what do we do with this stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
So this first thing you have here is so true, isn't it? The idea, when it comes to that part of getting angry, and the idea that those triggers that we have, the idea that we have to remember that we are human. But then the bigger part of that is so are kids.
Yes.
And we're not perfect, as we've made mention, and as we share the examples of times when we've definitely fallen short. But we also have to realize that our kids are human too, in the sense that a lot of times they don't understand some of those triggers, and they don't fully understand what it's like to be a parent or to work, X amount of hours a day and come home and see things that, you get frustrated at. The idea that our kids, there has to be a little bit of grace there on both parties, that as dads, we have to realize that, we can't be so hard on ourselves sometimes too. Like, we're going to make mistakes, as we all do. And just realizing that our kids make mistakes and they say and do stupid stuff too.
Yeah.
So it's just really important at the very beginning of kind of growing and moving forward, we need to realize we are human, but so are our kids.
Yeah, that's good stuff there. And again, when I worked in the school setting and kids did stupid stuff, I always reminded myself, they're kids.
Yeah.
Okay, they're kids. And that is part of brain development, it's part of play development, it's part of just everything that a kid is. And so we just have to keep that in perspective.
Right.
And again, even the repetitive things, you've told your kid 100 times not to do this, they're still kids, right? And I think that's why, in Scripture, talk about, well, how many times should I forgive? 7 times or 7 times, 70 times?
Yeah.
And so they're kids. And again, we do want behaviors to change, but we have to constantly be coming back. That's what parents do. You don't quit. You come back into it and keep the opportunity to teach. So, how about this? The whole idea that with anger, we all get angry, but it's the expression of the anger, how we actually bring that out, and especially what happens with adults, and more specifically with men. Anger is the opportunity to show power and influence, okay?
Yeah, it's not the truth.
Yeah, and because you're out of control or you feel like you're losing control, so letting your anger fly out of you is what you're doing to show your power and influence over the situation.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, as an adult, you have to recognize that by your very nature with your kids, you already have power and influence.
Yeah.
You're bigger than them. You're their hero in many ways. So you already have that. And so when you throw it down by throwing lumber down into the woods and saying words you shouldn't say and all these kind of things and slamming things and stuff, you're really then basically overusing your power and influence. Okay, and it really kind of speaks to your own insecurity. Then, like you don't know how to deal with this,
right? And I know I've talked about this before on a previous episode. The idea that like if you're around a dude that gets really angry, like you kind of like don't even want to mess with them because you don't want to set them off even further. And I think in a lot of ways we know that. And just like you're saying, you get angry and you want to show your dominance and your influence of your kids. And a lot of times if you do that, sometimes your kids will just kind of take a step back and be like, whoa, I'm not gonna push those buttons anymore, And I think there's a lot of truth to that idea that by showing that anger and just like you were saying, the idea that it definitely gives that influence and what you want to show your dominance over your kids. And just like you're saying, it's already there. You don't need to have that. And it's easier said than done. Obviously, it's much easier to say, I'm not going to get angry because I already have that dominance over them. But it's another thing to actually do that. So
one of the, we just talked about the idea of even in the corporate world or your family or whatever, with power comes responsibility.
Yep.
And so I had to back up, right, as a parent and go, okay, wait a minute. I have a responsibility to handle my influence and my power.
Yeah.
And we all have seen bad leaders
who
are not responsible, and they use that anger and that power and that influence to manipulate something and what ultimately could be less than the best way.
Yep.
Right.
So kind of keep moving down the understanding your triggers. I think is really important, and I think part of this is the idea that we need to understand that our anger is maybe not always self-induced, but we have control, which is like you're saying, we are adults. So understanding, knowing your triggers, and not that we should necessarily always try and avoid those because they're going to happen regardless if you're trying to avoid them or not. Those triggers are going to happen. Stuff is going to happen that your kids are going to do that's going to set you off. But understand, as the adult, we need to fully wrap our mind around the fact that those triggers happen. And then how we're gonna respond to those, and I think it's important, for me, like I was sharing a little bit, when I get off work every third day, a lot of times that being tired, I know is one of those things. It's just it makes it much easier for me to kind of get to that point, and not excusing that behavior at all. But for me, I have an hour drive home, and I can tell you without a doubt, when I'm driving home, if I kind of run back those runs that I was on and those people that I encountered, when I get home, I haven't really had a chance to decompress fully in that hour drive home because I'm continuing running back different runs that I was on. If I had a rough night, if we had an encounter with a patient that got kind of physical with us in the sense that they kind of came out, we had to get the police involved. Like those runs, I know when I get home, I'm already a little bit on edge. Where if I had, we're always busy where I work at, but if we had a night where it was, a little bit more calm, and I have that chance in that ride home to not really worry about work and not think about work, those triggers don't really come up as often because I've had that hour drive home to kind of decompress. So I understand those triggers for me and what they are. And again, as much as I want to try and avoid some of those triggers, I mean, there's just no way for me to always be able to put myself away from those patients that I have to make runs on. I mean, it's just part of my job.
Right.
So
it's just the daily encounter. Yeah, so it's important that you recognize your triggers.
Yep.
And we've talked about this in previous shows, but the idea that once you recognize your triggers, like the things that you're probably going to see this today, or it's fairly frequent, once you recognize that, then to have the plan in place. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to deal with it beforehand so it doesn't catch you off guard, to at least minimize those opportunities? I refer to this as doing fire drills. We've talked about that before. You need to do fire drills. You need to know what you're going to do if the building catches on fire before it catches on fire.
Right.
And so this is no different. Recognize triggers. Okay. But the next part that I think is important with this is a parent. Once you recognize your triggers, and if it involves your kids, share those with your
Absolutely.
kids. All right. Like if there's something that dealing with your kids triggers your fire, okay, gets you angry. Yes, you need to recognize it, but you need to share that with your kids. Kids, when you do this, this is what happens. This is, I get angry or I get upset.
Right.
Okay. Don't, your kids will naturally figure this out a little bit as they get older.
Right.
But help them out. Our job is not to try to catch our kids with our anger.
Right.
Our job is to say, hey, you know what? We want this house to run as smoothly as possible. And so informing your kids of this really goes a long way.
And, in preparing for this show, I told my girls, I'm recording a show today, and my oldest said, Daddy, what are you going to talk about? And so naturally I started talking about, the times when I get really angry with her. And I told her, I was like, baby girl, if you noticed, when Daddy gets off work, I'm really tired, and that's a lot of times when I snap at you. And I told her that's what we're going to talk about, and she's like, "Yeah, Daddy, I do notice that." Wonderful, thanks, baby girl. But
she just affirmed it.
She does, and she's getting to the age now where I think she kind of can wrap her mind when she sees me come in the morning. And again, not that she should act any different around me, because I don't ever want her to have to walk in eggshells around me in her own house. Like that's never a goal of mine. But I also think there's things she can do once she starts to, get a little bit older. She can start to, when I say, hey, go get your coat on, she goes and does it, versus say, hey, go get your coat on. And then 3 seconds later, I look over and she still hasn't even made that motion. Like, so I think as she gets older, she will, kind of pick up on those, because again, she knows when I get off work that Daddy doesn't sleep a whole lot when he's at work. So she's picking up on those things. She understands those triggers. And I think it's really important, just like you're saying, to have those conversations with your kids, because in that, when you start to have this conversation and let your kids know those triggers, if your kids are part of what sets you off, like what a great way to humble yourself in front of your kids and be like, I have flaws, and when you do X, Y, Z, my flaws are really going to start to show. And I think it's a really cool opportunity to have that conversation, a real conversation with your kids. And obviously they have to be of a certain age to be able to really understand what you're even talking about. But I think it's a great opportunity just to come before your kids. I'm not perfect. In order for me to be a better dad to you, these are the things that really set me off. And I think it's just a really cool conversation you can have with your kids.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So another thing then we want to move to is, let's say something does fire you up and you didn't really see it coming and it fires you up. The one thing that you have the responsibility to do is to start to recognize your emotions. And all of us have different emotional traits. Some of us, our face gets red. Some of us, we clench our teeth. Maybe we make a fist. We have these emotional things that come out in physical symptoms. And so it is important that you recognize that your own, okay, like what do I do? And this sounds just so simple, but in my business here at Rock Solid Families, we see it all the time where guys and girls, but they go into rages, okay?
Yeah.
And we can prevent it when we recognize our symptoms, where the storm's starting to kick up, okay? Yep. And then just like you would do with your kid, when your kid's starting to throw a tantrum, and you're like, what are you throwing a tantrum about? You put your kid in timeout, right? The timeout is not a punishment. The timeout is the opportunity to reset the emotions, to take a break, to step away. And so as a man, you have the responsibility, when you feel yourself starting to go off, back out, take a break, all right? And that has to become your go-to. You know what? I'm just not going to talk right now. I need some time.
Right.
And what that allows you to do is allows the emotional storm to calm itself down.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've talked about before, you can't think logically and emotionally at the same time.
Right.
That's why we train firemen and stuff to go in and be logical while they're fighting a very emotional,
Absolutely.
what could be a very emotional situation.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the same thing goes here. Put yourself in a timeout. Take a break. And I know for me, it usually takes me an hour or so just to calm it down. And then you can come in and you can start to own what's going on.
Right. And I think that's the important thing is taking that time away to kind of step so you don't say a really hurtful thing. Because I think we can all attest to times when we got really angry, we said something really stupid that really kind of dug at someone because we knew. And I think it's important to, take that step away. and not turn to anything, i.e. like alcohol. I think it's important, when you do step away, turning to something like alcohol as a comfort, as an escape is not going to be beneficial. And then ultimately you have to come back to that situation. You have to, have closure to whatever that trigger is. You have to make sure that you've addressed it with your kids, with your wife, with your friends, whatever the trigger is that sets you off, that made you kind of be quick to anger. You take a step back, you take a little bit to decompress, and then you have to come back to it, and you have to make sure we address it.
Yeah, that's definitely good. So the next thing really is, if you did mess up, it's time to own it. Yeah. Right. And you made a remark to that just a little bit ago, to own it in front of your kids.
Yeah.
Man, guys, I'm sorry. I lost it. Here's what I did wrong. Here's what I said. And make your apologies. Yeah. Right. I mean, when we storm away and we've said hurtful things and we never own that, the message to our kids is, well, I guess, I'm stuck with this one. Yeah. Right. And so it's a great opportunity for your kids to learn how to help them out here.
Yeah, this is in the morning when I get off and I come home and the girls do something that sets me off a little bit, and I'm quick to anger, and then I'm getting ready to take them to school, and I know I'm going to drop them off for the day, and as a parent, I think a lot of stuff runs through your mind. Well, if I never see my kid again, the last thing they're going to remember
yeah.
for me is
Daddy whipping my butt.
Yeah, so I've dropped them off one too many times and not made that apology, and it's just like, man, I can't do that. I mean, nothing is ever guaranteed in life,
That's right.
and
yep.
So it's one of those things. Right before I drop them off, I always make sure they know I love them. Make sure that if I did mess up that morning, which is more times than not, making sure I do apologize to them and make sure they know that Daddy is not perfect.
Right.
But I'm trying and doing the best I can sometimes. And but yeah, I think it's just important. Just coming before your kids, apologizing, letting them know you're not perfect. Because ultimately, as your kid grows up, they're going to learn those lessons from you. And if you don't teach them to have ownership on your own stuff, how are you ever going to tell them you should take ownership on your stuff?
Yeah, you're going to create a bad habit in them without even knowing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, another part of this, though, is that you admitting their wrong or admitting your own wrong does not take away your opportunity to help them with their wrong.
Right.
Okay. So you may have lost it. Like, I'll go back to the treehouse thing. I lost it there and did and said some things I shouldn't have done. But my kids also had a part in that. And so it's not to point out like, well, you did this or you did that, but it's the opportunity to say, okay, guys, here's what I need next time. Yeah. Okay. Like if you're saying you want to do this, then I need you to invest in it as well. Yeah. All right. And so, and again, we do that when we're calm. Because if we're screaming at or yelling at, they're not getting the message, they're getting the emotion. Yep. Right? And it's really tough for a kid to decipher that. Yeah. So that's why we want to pull the emotions down, calm yourself, and then you admit your wrongdoing to your kids. But then the opportunity to teach, okay, kids, here's what I need out of you for the next time.
Right.
Okay? That's when we have a teachable moment.
Yeah. And I think in that, I mean, if your kids are doing something, if they have to be told 10 times to do something, it's very beneficial to talk to them about that. Like the part that I see myself apologizing is not that I corrected them or not that I was a parent to them. It's that I got angry in that. Like you have to be parents to your kids and actually have to tell them right and wrong and different. But the idea that how you go about it, that's where I fall short all the time. So it's coming to them, apologizing. It's not that I had to parent you, but I got to apologize because I got really angry with you and I didn't go about it the right way.
Right. Right. So let's take this. We're going to wrap things up here, and let's move this into really what this is all about. Okay. Yeah. So we're talking to you strong dads out there, but ultimately we have the ultimate strong dad. Yep. And think about God here. Think about God, and He is our Father. Yep. And the idea that there is always a time for justice, and there's a time for grace. And think about how if God handled you like you handle yourself and your kids. Yep. Okay. And so God has this amazing thing called justice and grace, and the thing that allows those two to work together is love. All right, the tension of love. That okay, should I do justice or should I do grace? Or when do I know to do which one? And so a lot of times we are black or white. Oh, that guy should hang. Or oh no, that guy should get a second chance all the time. And God wants our heart and if he knows he has our heart, if he knows our heart is for him, he then gives us grace.
Yeah.
Okay? If our heart goes hard, if we have a hardened heart, then God says, we'll just do justice then. If that's the way you want to be, then we'll just do justice. Yeah. And that's why God allows us to have a hardened heart, right? Yeah. He allows our heart to be hardened. And he wants you to choose to give your heart to him.
Yep.
And when he knows you're not going to be perfect.
Yep.
But if he sees you trying, all right, if he sees you trying, then he says, oh, they're giving me their heart.
Yep.
Right. I mentioned before in here, my favorite kid to coach in all of my times of coaching was my kid who was probably of average or less than average ability,
sure,
but gave me all their heart, worked like crazy. And that kid could make mistakes, and you were like, hey, it's all right, man. It's good. It's good. You keep going. You're good. Yep. You're good. Versus the kid who was arrogant and talented.
Yeah.
All right. That kid, he wasn't giving me his heart.
Right.
He's not giving me his heart, and so every time he makes a mistake, I'm just ready to climb all over him. Yeah. Right? And God does that with us. And so it's important that your kids are ready to give their heart to you.
Yeah.
All right? And little kids do. They want to please you.
Oh, yeah.
And when your little kids are giving you their heart, that's when you have to balance the grace and justice.
Right? Yeah.
And again, that's our message that God gives us, and to understand, hey, I need to keep my heart going towards God all the time.
And that should be, obviously we're going to fall short, but that should be our example that God, I mean, if you look all through Scripture, God does an amazing ability. Like he is all about justice and truth when it comes to telling people, but then he follows it up, and he's got the grace part of it, which is where that yeah, exactly. Which is, that part that we're so quick to be like, well, the justice in this, you did X, Y, Z, so the justice in that is this is your punishment, but we have to follow that up with grace, and that's very difficult to do sometimes, especially if they hit one of those triggers. Yes. It's so hard to show grace in that. But just like you're saying, I mean, how many times is in Scripture, God says to do something, and we clearly do the opposite, right. And then you go back and it says the exact same thing. So it's like God's telling you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 right. times, and you continue to do the same thing. How much anger could he display on us when we do the same thing over and over? But right. yet we're like, go put your coat on, Ava, and I have to tell her again. I'm like, snap at her, But like God's message is so much bigger than putting your coat on, right? But yet He has that grace part to it that is so cool to see and so cool to have in my life. The idea that I have a Father in heaven that shows me grace. Like, what a great example that I should be doing that for my kids.
Right. That's a great example there too. So, okay, what's our challenge? So, we always like to have the challenge at the end of each of our shows, and it's the idea that if you just listen to the show and you don't walk away thinking and doing something, then we kind of count that as, well, why do you even listen? Okay, yeah. And so the challenge is like, listen to this show and then examine what you've got going on in your world.
Yeah.
And so the first thing is I want you to go back through and kind of assess and look at some of your little outbursts that you've had, your little fits. We shared several of ours, and now there's enough time has passed that those have turned into humor a little bit. And so think about some of your anger outbursts. All right. The next thing is I want you then to identify what are your triggers. Like if you have set triggers, then don't act like you're surprised every time you see them. Okay. Right. Like, wow, this happened again. So recognize what your triggers are and then start to think about what you need to do with that.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And you talked about this a little bit, the idea that when you start to feel your anger coming on, when you start to feel your blood pressure getting a little elevated, you have to have a plan, doing those fire drills like you were talking about. You have to have plans in place that maybe you have something where you and your wife agree upon, if the kids do this, it sets me off. I need to take a step away, and you need to kind of cover for me, essentially, and give me that time to go do my plan of action that I have set before. So I think that's really important. Having your wife involved in that is really, really important.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing here is, when you get yourself calmed down, you own what you did. Yeah. Always own what you did, and you apologize with authenticity. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, and then followed with a but is not a sorry. It's an excuse. Yeah. Okay. And so, hey kids, what I said in there was wrong. And I want to take full ownership for that.
Yeah.
All right. And then even the idea that I've admitted, I've confessed, and then a statement of repentance, meaning I'm not going to say that stuff again, or I'm not going to act like that again. That's my movement towards repentance.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then the last little thing as far as a walkway or a challenge for you guys is you have an amazing opportunity to begin to demonstrate to your kids the ability to own something and own your emotions and take control of your emotions and have an example to your kids. Everything we talk about in Strong Dad is building into our kids and building into our family. And this again is just another one of those things where you can really you're going to have those outbursts. You're going to have times when you lose control of your emotions. We have to own it. We have to learn to begin to take control of that emotion, and through that, we can really teach our kids to take ownership in our own actions and grow, that learning curve, learning how to be better as men, as strong dads, and just having that example for our kids.
Yeah, they follow your lead and learn how to do what you're trying to do to control. So that's good stuff. So hopefully that helps you out. Hey, we want to thank all you strong dads out there for listening. And if there's anything that we can do to help you here at Rock Solid Families, you feel free to reach out. If you got an anger issue, get it under control. Give me a call. You can call me at 812-576-7625, or you could email me at hutch@rocksolidfamilies.org. So definitely do not allow this to alter the quality of life that your family and you have. Take control of it and get yourself some help. All right, Kyle, we better say thanks again.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much for Kramer's Beer House and coming alongside of us, and go check them out down there on Route 128. And also, thanks so much for Mansfield Insurance Agency in Bright, Indiana. For all your insurance needs, go check out Mansfield Insurance Agency. So, yeah, thanks so much, guys. Go out there and be some strong dads.
Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency in Bright, Indiana for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. Established in 1981, the Mansfield Insurance Agency has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Bright, Indiana, serving clients throughout Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky.